Hey, here we are once again at the Tetractys Institute Metaphysics and Evolution. And the question has been ongoing here about certain cycles and such. And one of the big things we're discussing is a little bit of the Mayan cycles. Um, so this is just some quick notes before we get into some other details. The big thing that was mentioned for the longest time on the 2012 thing was the Baktun length of cycles, which I still say occurred mostly in December uh, of 2007. We had 5 planetary bodies lined up, which the big one was odd to me was Pluto, because that's not something visible to the Maya. But 4 of their major objects, including the Earth and all, were all lined up, pretty much so facing galactic center. That kind of accuracy you can't really define as much, particularly by the human eye, by what they were being looked at by the Mayans. But these cycles, that's a rather large cycle. We're talking 144,000 days on that one. So the Baktun cycle is very extensive and includes large eras of time. We are in a little bit of a conundrum, because we have cycles ending and beginning. And like I said before, they have a tendency to overlap. And when they overlap, we get this massive level of confusion, chaos, all kinds of things just hit the fan. So I would say this much, and this is one of the things we will get to eventually, is to remain as positive as possible, see, because what we do here in here has a tendency to override a lot of what we do here in our heart. We need to switch this, see, and that's what's coming. So the meek, supposedly, that are mentioned, maybe biblically or scripturally or whatever level, the meek that would inherit the earth. It's interesting to me, and some people have noticed this. Why is it that only the cruel gain power? Well, those type of personalities have a tendency not to care, so therefore they rise. The people who care, it's not like they would say that the giving gets stepped on and turned into welcome mats more often than anything else. But there's a level of that's true. Why? Because we give, we don't take. And so the difference there politically, when you begin to get into some of these things, that does change humanity for the worse, let's say. But these cycles that are that kind of extensive, and when they have these collisions, so to speak, we have massive change in eras. And so one could say that even when the Master was here, referred to as the Christ, that consciousness that came within the midst of these cycles. It's interesting to me that statement gets used a lot, in the midst of, and we will be discussing some of that, because it is in the midst of something that that's where the heavy music is heard, and that's where we are. We are in one of these type of overlaps, creates a lot of let's say disruptive harmonics, or actually non-harmonics in a sense. And so the energy that's moving through a lot of things we define as being feminine energy. Again, I would say that doesn't really have a lot to do with just women. It's not just women. It's also in men. Men need to wake that up, or allow it to wake up. There's a lot of women that I've met into too that are lately, that are very confused about some things, and we have discussions and stuff like this. It's always good to have these kinds of discussions, because it's not so much you discussing your fears as much as it is you are discussing your feelings, your emotions about something, and emotions being driven by these electrical impulses in the brain are one of the things that get affected by these cycles. We just recently had the Grand Square, and people can make a lot of these things. I like the way Edgar Cayce put it. I go, this is just because you stem. Basically, we come from some of these influences, and we bring them into practice here in physicality. These worlds, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, we look at them and we say they have influence over us. Well, you've been there. You've been there soulfully. As a journeyer, you have gone through things, and we discussed this before, with just because the human eye, the body eye, the soul is human. Just because some earth body eye doesn't see something at a particular level, because we're seeing less than what, 2% of full spectrum of anything. Um, a very minuscule amount of the overall uh, essence of energy, radioactivity. You can just basically call it energy, period. And the consciousness that exudes from within it. That range is so small to us, you know. So we have these visitations in other places. Our solar system is pretty complete to itself in that sense. We're in a bubble, and our little bubble here on planet Earth is having a tendency to kind of bust a little. However, again, I would say be of good faith here, folks, because understand that, and let me put it this way: this is not an end to anything. This is the beginning of something. The beginning of something that has been struggling very and desperately struggling to gain some kind of foothold in our minds. Like I said, the heart, it takes a lot to reverse the brain, the mind, to get it to let go of this world, of its physicalities and the things that we can manipulate within it. This has been the thing that always drove us into the fall in the first place. And we're still wrestling with these things. So the beginning has been going on for a long time. Okay, when we talk about 6 days of creation, we've discussed some of this before, that those are very lengthy periods of time, almost in the Brahmic sense of time. You're talking millions of years. Because the Hebrew word for day is not, you know, I don't picture God wearing a Rolex and actually timing himself. You know, I got 24 hours to do this. Can I do that? I'll swing it. God doesn't work like that way in my mind. Let alone in reincarnation, like we've said before, in these cycles as well. I think your God must be cruel if you think you only have one experience here. Plain and simple. Out of all of eternity, out of all of forever, you're only going to have one earthly experience, and if you don't get it right, you're screwed. Pardon the expression, but that's how it gets put with this, you know, foot on your neck type of thing. And that I find to be extremely obscure, because these type of things are the things that have repressed the nature of man for ages. Religion, politics, economy, technology in general has been used against us, not for us. Again, these things are going to come to a change. And I'll put some of this real quick here, because when we get into these cycles, I'm going to discuss a little bit about Edgar Cayce and some of the things that he presented. I'm not saying that Edgar Cayce is the end all of all, because he's not any more than you know, Buddhas and things of this sort. This is a process that we go through, and we need to understand the fact that the process means that there is things to go through. We don't just go from point A to point B, like, you know, being energized from one, you know, from the Enterprise down to the planet's surface. Okay, we pass through these things, but we don't pass through these things without causality, without event. And so our time is not the time that's based into divine time. Divine time has a tendency to allow billions of years can go by, and divine time has barely blinked. Okay, so that's an understanding that has to be understood there, or something that understood when we talk 6 days of creation. And that itself is cycles. The Bible is built with cycles. There's so many cycles built into many manuscripts. Okay, the Bible is not, let's say, again, top dog. Okay, it's not at the pyramid point of anything, outside of the fact that it has fantastic amounts of information that at the metaphysical level have been trying to tell us things that, out of all the people that have taken it literally and decided to turn it into dogma, and decided once again to put the foothold on your neck about things. And I'm not saying anything bad about religion. I'm just saying it's lost its grip on itself, not on its people. Its people still have an understanding. The masses still have an understanding, a comprehension that says, you are not doing us justice. And that's a serious problem, politically, economically, religiously. Our technology is all the power to repair, to rebuild, to do these things properly. By paying attention to our divine side, our consciousness that serves rather than takes, is a process. And like many other processes that, at the divine level, I think we need to understand. And this is the problem. This is the problem, because divine processes don't stop just because humanity needs to take a breath. And we need to really seriously consider that. See, because in the middle of us trying to take a breath in this moment of time, so many things are on the edge of that razor, on the edge of that sword, teetering. This is where we should be on our knees praying. This is where we should be meditating. This is where we should be attending those events where we come together, discussing the permaculture, discussing our world, okay, which is something we've never seriously sat down and done. We've sat down and talked politics. We've sat down and talked economies and religions and everything like that. Every single one of those subjects is kind of difficult to discuss. I don't care where you are, particularly if you're drinking. Don't discuss those things. But yeah, when you say that you meet people and you don't want to discuss these things, there's a reason why. Because only fools will discuss those things. Basically. I don't like engaging too many conversations at a religious level because nobody can prove anything. People use the Bible to try to prove the Bible. That's like Moby Dick trying to prove there's giant white whales. And I've said this before, that the possibilities exist regardless. I don't care how atheistic you want to be, you have to have a belief system, even if it's an atheist believing in only themselves. Again, that's part of the problem. See, this amorality that has subsisted and for so long has poisoned our being, our sense of divinity. And religion isn't going to save you. Religion doesn't save anything. Religion has a tendency to define things at a certain level, and then it will keep them there. It does not want change any more than politics or economy does. An oil-driven world, we don't want to change. It's not that we ourselves, in the midst of things, don't want to change, but the powers that be don't want to change, see, because they're sitting in power, and they understand that that power is built on things of this world. And the only thing I would have to say to them is shrouds don't have pockets. They're not going to take any of it with them, you see. So what we do bring in with us and what we do take out with us has a lot to do with how you are going to handle things by the time it comes back around. And it will come back around. I don't care what your belief system is, whether you believe in reincarnation or these cycles or anything that we were about to discuss, any more than a dead ant. Okay, but I think that dead ant probably has a better perspective, even in its death, than we do as human beings as to what the natural state of things is meant to be. And that is a sad comparison. So on that note, believe you me, we are not done. And even in the Edgar Cayce readings, there are places where people have a tendency to put the year 1900 in front of them because he only gave the last 2 digits in the year. What would you do if Edgar Cayce, and this is a note I want to make, okay, for people out there who are studying Edgar Cayce, and we'll close with this real quick before we come back. Edgar Cayce gave dates that had the number 1900, 1948, 1952. He gave dates. There were times when he said, look for this in 46, look for this in 52, whatever. The 1900 is not there, and I think people need to consider that that is 21st century dating. The entity that was offering information, and the circle of entities that were there that offered information through Cayce, and channeling is not something we recommend. That's a whole other discussion. However, these energies, these entities, the way that they revealed information and such, the syntax has to be broken down in a lot of ways because it comes through a divine source and has to speak at a human level. That's That's like us trying to learn to speak at the amoeba level again. Okay, that's how far that kind of understanding has to break itself down into increments that can be understood by the human mind. Why? Because the human mind has not allowed itself to grow. So when we hear these dates about look for this and such and such and such, I have a tendency to believe that those are dates that the entities did not see in the 1900s in the present time. It was forward enough in time, Earth time, universal time to this point, that we can't see it. Neither can, and because of that, the entity that is speaking from within can't see it. Okay, this is what I'm saying. We present a lot of boundaries when we try to speak at the divine level, because divinity is beyond us. So discussions about religion, economics, your politics, and everything like that, you can't really prove a whole lot, particularly in religion. And I don't want to stick with religion. I prefer a theology where there are no boundaries, and we're going to discuss things exactly at that level. Hopefully, where we dissolve these boundaries that have been repressing us for so long. Okay? So stand true to yourself, stand true to your heart, stand true to your God, stand true to your faith, because that's what's going to get you through this. More on this later. Take care.